We're going to be speaking to Roger Kiska. We've had that privilege several times on Revelation TV, and he is from legal counsel from Christian Concern. And what we're just going to start the programme with, Howard, is this quite a controversial statement that's been made, and it did appear in the Times newspaper. Bishop bans clergy from bedsides of the sick and dying. And it just, let me read just a little bit to you. It says, in a letter sent to all bishops and those involved in chaplaincy provision, the Right Reverend Stephen Cottrell, the Bishop of Chelmsford, under whose authority the new Nightingale Hospital in East London falls, wrote of the need to maintain extremely strict discipline regarding contact. He said that volunteer chaplains would be banned from going on wards or to be near patients, including those not displaying symptoms of COVID-19. And this bishop, who will become the Archbishop of York in June, said that clergy who wish to volunteer to help the Nightingale should think instead about how they should support the NHS staff in other ways, suggesting they might wish to go shopping for them. And of course, this has stirred a lot of anger. We did try to get hold of Bishop Stephen earlier today, and his communications team actually just gave us a one-liner. Good to talk to you briefly earlier. Unfortunately, Bishop Stephen is unavailable to do this, so he certainly has had an opportunity. But are you there, Roger?
Yes, I'm here. Good to be on.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, obviously, Christian Concern has got involved in this. I was reading your press release there. So give us some more details of what's going on and why this is wrong. Because on the face of it, people would be saying, well, you know, no one's allowed into hospitals. Even if a patient goes in, even their husband, wife, whatever, cannot go and visit them. So on the surface, it does seem to make a lot of sense.
Well, if you just go under the surface a little bit, you'll see that the hospitals themselves want volunteer chaplains being involved, and it makes sense because, you know, while they can treat the body, chaplains can treat the soul. And, you know, being in hospital, whether it be for COVID-19 or anything, it's a period of great anxiety. And I think it's just a dereliction of duty, a significant and fundamental failure by the Church of England to recognize the spiritual needs of people and just the possibility of bringing evangelism into the hospitals at this troubling time.
So it's just those who are from the Church of England, and that's it, is it? So, I mean, Muslim patients can see their imams, and other religions will be able to see their sort of figures of spiritual authority?
That's absolutely correct. So this isn't a government edict. This is coming directly from the Church of England. So not just Muslims, but any Christian denomination can still go and be a volunteer chaplain. And the hospitals themselves are offering full PPE gear, so they're fully protected from contacting the virus. So it really just doesn't play out well in my mind as far as the reasoning behind it. Patients need spiritual care. The church can give it to them, and they're willfully, because of this edict, not doing it.
Well, the thing is, I also read that full wards full of patients like with, you know, sort of heart problems and all sorts of things that have absolutely nothing to do with COVID-19 are also not now getting the opportunity to see. It's the volunteer chaplains, isn't it, rather than those that are permanently attached to the hospital. Am I right in saying that?
That's correct. And if you think, you know, in hospital, you might want last rites, you might want to clear your conscience, you know, confess matters, you might want spiritual, just, you know, to speak about the other world and salvation. And the fact that the Church of England is not allowing its clergy to do that, I think it's shameful wouldn't be the word, but it's certainly a dereliction of duty. And it reminds me of Matthew 16:25, which says, those who seek to save their lives will lose it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Roger, I'm not so au fait with this because I've been working all day on other things, so I've come in with very little knowledge and information on this. But hearing what you're saying, it does seem, I suppose the question: would Christ go in there as? What would he do? Would he refuse to minister to people? I don't think so. I think he would be there on the front line, and therefore we as his disciples should be doing the same, should we not? Yeah?
Yeah, I think Kierkegaard said it well when he said that, Christians are, that Christ is the archetype. We are to be like him in every way, and Scripture tells us that we're to be Christ-like. And he certainly ministered to lepers and people with any number of ailments and diseases. He preached and brought the word into hostile territories to the point that he died crucifixion, prior to that being tortured. So he certainly didn't shy away from anything like this. And as a church, as an example, we should be leading and being Christ-like.
Let me just ask you, Roger, are Christians concerned challenging this decision?
Well, it's an administrative decision, so there's not much to challenge. It's not something we could bring before the courts. It's an employment decision. They have the discretion to make it. We certainly released a press release because we felt strongly about the fact that they're missing an opportunity here, that more than ever, people are needing to hear the gospel. And they're needing spiritual healing. And the fact that it's not happening, it's really a tragedy. It's a missed opportunity.
Yeah. So what can be done about it?
We can keep it to Bishop. I think we can tweet about it. Our churches can talk about it. Individual churches can speak up and raise their voice. And I think in a democratic society, hopefully right reason will win the way, and just to challenge it through civil discourse.
I'm actually wondering, Roger, whether evangelical pastors would actually take the opportunity to get in touch with some of these hospitals and offer their services if the Church of England is stopping their volunteer clergy from going in.
I think it's a wonderful idea, and I think volunteer clergy themselves, if they feel that their conscience is telling them that they should be volunteering, then they should do that. Because if there is a decision coming that goes against the spirit of Scripture and the Word of God, I think they'll lead it.
Roger, would there? You keep cutting out, so I'm missing the odd word. But let me just ask you: is there any requirement that paperwork that a pastor would need in order to gain entry into a hospital?
I think that is up to the individual hospital and whatever their volunteering regulations would be and how they deal with the chaplaincy. I know that hospitals have made the offer that if volunteer clergy come in, they will be set up with the full protective gear.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think the ball is ultimately now in the church's hand.
What is it that you can do on behalf of the clergy? Is there anything? Are your hands tied, or are you able to speak to those in higher authority to try and change this?
I think Christian Concern is doing its best. Our Chief Executive Operator Andrea Williams is tied in closely with the Church of England. She attends the synods. She knows the leadership, and she's been trying her best to raise her voice on this issue. And as you noted, we've issued a press release, and we're encouraging Christians, pastors, volunteers, priests, clergy, if they can, to become chaplains. It's because that is really where we need clergy right now.
Would you be able to liaise on behalf of other pastors who might be listening to this program tonight? Would they be able to get in touch with you particularly, and or have they got to go it alone?
No, absolutely. Please contact us. You can find our contact details on the website at www.christianconcern.com. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to explore ways of discussing this with the Church of England.
Roger, I've got a couple of emails in. We are live to our audience. Mike says the military chaplains in the First World War chose to minister to the dying when under fire, bringing many to Christ. It was a very good reminder there. And then I've got one here from Peggy who says, I was pleased to see on the BBC Panorama programme this evening that at the Coventry University Hospital, they had a hospital chaplain available for all, including ICU and COVID-19. But I think there's a huge shortage because it's the volunteers, isn't it? They're not allowed to play their part.
Yes, it's the volunteers. And, as I've said, it's just a tragic missed opportunity because this is a once in a generation thing. You're in the UK. I'm here in my home in Slovakia, but we're shut down basically as a society. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of feeling of isolation, a lot of people questioning their existence, a lot of loneliness, and we need the gospel and the good news, the message of salvation more than ever.
Yeah. I mean, especially, Roger, as the patients, it's sort of unprecedented that those who are incredibly sick or dying are not allowed to have their family by their bedside. We've never known such times.
I mean, there's a lot. I'm not going to question the fact that there's emergency measures in place. The UK is not the only country. I think every country in Europe has adopted some form of measure or not. But I do have to question the proportionality of the measures. Why is church attendance not deemed an essential service?
Absolutely,
I think
yes. I mean,
there's.
Sorry, Roger. One of the things that I'm seeing here on my notes is that Italy, for example, the clergy has paid a heavy price so far because something like 67 Italian priests have died from the virus. So maybe that's a reason why there is this sort of ban amongst the...
Well, that's what they're saying, Howard, that the ban is because of the protection of the clergy. But if the clergy are still willing to go in, then they should have the opportunity.
Absolutely. This is you don't get a better opportunity to be able to speak to people who are really crying out for some answers and also want to know what happens at this time of life if we are going to pass away. What hope is there at the end of the light at the end of the tunnel, I should say.
I completely agree, and I think. Here where I am in Slovakia, there's been secret services being held. Clergy are willing to hold services. People are willing to go. There's been protests, for example, in the US, people wanting to go to church. And the fact that the Church of England is not standing up for that right, to minister to the people should trouble us all. It should really make us question the raison d'etre of the Church of England.
Actually, that just brings me to another point, sort of regarding church closure, because I know that Christian Concern are obviously very concerned about this ruling. But what about the fact that online figures are showing that more people are attending church online in so many cases, in comparison to those who actually would walk into a building?
Well, I mean, this is one of the benefits of technology, that we're able to reach people in ways that we normally wouldn't. But I think nothing can replace a brick and mortar church, the sense of community you have. So it's more than just hearing the gospel, it's being able to share the gospel with other Christians. Fellowship, learning, growing, being ministered to, all these things come with going to church physically.
I mean, this is an unusual situation, Roger. I mean, we've not had anything like this in our lifetimes, that's for sure. And I think we're just feeling our way. And I suppose government ministers, even those at the heads of the church, really don't know quite how to handle this. But I would have thought that from those with a spiritual attitude would have the mind of Christ on this and be more willing to give of their lives for others.
I fully concur, and I think that had this, been a decision by the government to say no volunteer chaplains, that would be one thing. But this is the Church of England on its own making that decision, and they're making it for volunteer chaplains who otherwise might want to go in. And I think we really need to be questioning the church leadership as to why they would make a decision like that when the hospitals themselves are going out of their way to invite them in and to keep them safe in doing so.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Roger. We really have appreciated you joining us, and we'll encourage our viewers to actually make contact with Christian Concern.